for generating millions of dollars in revenue each year for my company in that role.
So all those things, right? If you put them together, guys, it's not very tough.
Right. And so from a habits perspective, I think it's the most important things are being consistent in your habits. Right? Habits are great. I mean, obviously, and we're certainly speaking of good habits.
Good morning, guys. A very good morning to you in India, wherever in India you're watching this from. Welcome to today's early morning show, and I'm very excited again to talk about our guest today. Just like all our other guests that we've been getting to you on the show recently, we have a very super amazing guest today who's not only an author, a best-selling author of 3 sales success books, but he is also a live podcaster and a host of a sales show. And I'm very, very happy to welcome today Scott Ingram from Texas, USA, to our show today, who will help us get more insights into what are the habits of best sales professionals, what can you do to get to that level, and how does Scott, right, manage all these things, his family, because he does a lot of things, as you'll come to know today, and still make time for himself.
Hey, Scott, a very good morning from India. How are you doing?
Hey Ashish, I am good. My internet connection is not loving me, but hopefully this works okay. How do I sound to you?
Yeah, you're sounding fine. You're looking fine, and you sound fine.
All right.
So we
All
can
right.
get
I don't know
started.
about looking fine. I'm a podcaster. I've got a voice for audio. Face for audio. Face for audio.
Yeah, no, it's looking fine too. All right, so you can try video blog just like today. All right, so let's get started, Scott. Super excited. The reason being that we primarily speak about sales on this channel, and most of the guys that join us are entrepreneurs or small business owners. And it always helps kind of getting some insights because every time it's about that one thing that you need to re-emphasize your mind on so that you can do it properly. So I want to get started with the fact of the habits part of it, right? So you've done a lot of podcasts, you do a lot of work, you've written books, you meet a lot of people. What do you notice in terms of habits when it comes to the most successful sales professionals around the world? Because I think they have a pattern. So if you can start with that, and we would be taking notes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my perspective, given your entrepreneurial audience, I have been an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur, right? All of this work that I do with Sales Success Media, where I host a couple of podcasts and, to your point, publish books and host a summit, is an addition to my day job as a quota-carrying sales professional, where I'm responsible for generating millions of dollars in revenue each year for my company in that role, right? And so from a habits perspective, I think it's the most important things are being consistent in your habits, right? Habits are great. I mean, obviously, and we're certainly speaking of good habits, right? Not bad habits. But if you are consistent in those good habits, that is where the results typically come from, right? And so the important thing is to understand what are those key habits, those core habits that are going to drive your business and drive your results and drive your sales, and then just making sure that no matter what, those things are happening. And I think in most instances, folks are tackling those habits first thing in the morning, right? Just getting it out of the way before everything else gets in the way, right? Before the phone starts ringing, the emails start coming in with your customers who are having challenges where you need to provide some support or whatever it is, and really making that happen. So if you can make it a priority, you can do it first thing, you can be consistent about it, that's what drives those results.
Wow. Okay. Well, so can you give some examples of these habits because it will help us do that? Because what you just said, it resonates with me right now. I'm editing a book with 37 authors on HR, we've got 6 more projects going on, which are 6 month, different sales projects. And there's a lot of work, right? So there's always something happening. And this is just on the front end. And on the back end, you have a business to run, you got revenue to grow, and then you have to do so many more things in the thought making process. I can resonate with, what you just said, because if I miss planning for 2 hours, this is how I feel right now, right? It's going to affect everything else in the shape of things that I'm doing. And I'm sure a lot of people who have work, who focus on building their businesses face that same challenge. So what would those habits be that we should do first thing in the morning?
Well, for me, let me speak personally, and then we can always talk about, the folks that I interview on the Sales Success Stories podcast. Every single one of them is either the number one top sales performer in their organization, or they're at least in the top 1% because they work for some giant organization. For me, my most important core habit is I call it getting things done, right? Because it's very, very initially based on David Allen's book and his process that he recommends. And I think if you go to top1.fm/4P, the number 4, the letter P, I'm pretty sure if
Okay.
it doesn't take you there, I'll fix it, and I'll make sure that it takes you there
Okay.
after we're done. Send me a note. But I did a keynote
Done.
presentation on this where I got really deep into my own process, because that's the number one question I always get. People are asking
Mm,
me, Scott, how are you hosting 3 podcasts, publishing multiple books, hosting this summit, selling millions of dollars each year? You've got a family, all of this stuff. How are you doing that? And it really comes down to this process. And so in a nutshell, and it's hard to describe very, very simply, but it's really a process of getting clear on what's on my calendar today, making sure that I
mm,
confirm that, right? So that all of those meetings happen and I don't get stood up and I don't have wasted time. And once I have that in place, I know how much time do I have to work with, right? How much white space is there in that day? Because some days it's just meeting, 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 meeting. There's no time to hardly breathe. That was basically my entire day today. I had one of those days today, but tomorrow I have a lot more white space, and tomorrow I'll be able to get a lot more done, right? So from a
mm,
to-do list perspective. So once I understand how much space do I have to work with, I'm essentially doing a triage process and going
mm,
through my key projects, my key accounts, the prospecting that I need to do, all of those types of elements, and then deciding what are the most important things. And given how much time I have available today, how much am I going to be able to get? And then part of what I'm deciding there is, first, what's most important and what's going to be the hardest. What is going to take the most
mm,
mental energy? Because those are the things, if you do them first, it actually tends to build on your ability to do more, right? Because you feel
mm.
satisfied and really gratified that, hey, I got this really hard thing done. Now I feel really good about myself. I want to keep doing stuff. I want to get more and more
Yes.
done, right? So it's really just setting yourself up. And I think we each have to find our own process like that. We're all a little bit different, right? I am an extraordinary morning person. You're interviewing
Mm.
me. This is about the worst possible time to interview me because I should be going to bed. It's 8:30. It's
Okay.
8:40. It's 8:45 in the
You sleep
evening.
early, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's
pretty
it's
early to sleep.
8:45 in
That's
the
pretty good.
evening here in Austin, Texas. I get up at 4:30 in the morning, right? But
Yes.
that because and part of the reason I do that, I'm a pretty natural morning person, but it gives me those early morning hours before anything starts coming at me. And it allows me to control and dictate and really accomplish those priorities with knowing nobody's going to interrupt me. Nobody ever calls me at 6 in the morning or 7 in the
Yeah.
morning, right? It's not until a little bit later. So it just gives me an opportunity to really get ahead. And that's also when I have the most energy. So that works for me. But I think it's really important, we all have to kind of go through that process and figure out what works for us. I talk to a lot of night owls. My process will
Mm.
never work for them.
Work
They
with
have
them.
they have to figure out what works for them and their natural cycles and when their energy is at the highest levels.
Perfect. All right. So I've got two more questions, kind of to wrap this particular part up. The first one is, it's very important to understand how do you get consistent. So we are talking about the process of consistency. Can you take us a step back and say what drives a person to be consistent? Because a lot of times people get consistent for a while and then that consistency goes away. So, there's inconsistency of being consistent. What drives a successful person in your experience? Because you meet a lot of them. What's that click?
I think there's a couple of tricks you can use. I mean, the first thing is holding your commitment to yourself, right? We are often, if we promised our best client that
Hmm.
we were going to do something for them every single day, it would happen, wouldn't it?
Well, it
Why?
should.
Yeah, it should. Well, why don't we put ourselves on that same level? Aren't we at least as important as our most important client? So I think the first step is making that commitment to yourself, right? The
Hmm.
second thing you can do from there, I think it becomes about accountability. And so there's a few things you can do. One is you can then take that commitment and go public with it, right?
Hmm.
So just almost 2 years ago, I started the Daily Sales Tips podcast. And my commitment is every single day, there's going to be a new sales tip. And we've now been doing that for 600 and I don't know, 95 days. And I've never
Wow.
missed a
Including
day.
Sundays. Including
7 days a
Sundays.
week, every single
Wow.
day. I have not missed a day since January 19th, 2018. So,
Wow.
but it's a big public commitment. I talk about that all the time. I just told your entire audience that's what I'm doing. So can I miss tomorrow and not deliver? Absolutely not. Right? I think the other thing that you can do is find accountability partners, right? Find
Hmm.
find a buddy. Is there somebody who can hold you accountable to your commitment? This works best if you're a little bit scared of them, right? If
Yeah.
they're a little bit if they intimidate you, right? If it'll cause you psychic or relationship pain to not do what you said and have them see it and go, what is wrong with you, and think less of you, the more scared of them you are, the better. But again, you can often do that for each other. So they can do it for you, and then you can turn around and for them say, hey, what are you committed to? What can I hold you accountable to? And you can sort of leverage that type of buddy system. So just a few tricks to kind of manage that
Wow,
and help
wow.
make that
I
work.
like the fact. Wow, that's a pretty big commitment that you spoke about, man. Like, I'm just trying to imagine 2 years back when you made that announcement, and I'm sure it's now become a habit, and you enjoy the juice that you get out of it. But just think about a person doing that today for their business. I think successful people or people who want to become successful, they do those things, right? So you can differentiate those guys because they're ready to make that commitment. They're also scared, but they really want it. It's
Yeah,
something in them
yeah.
that they really want to get it done. All right. I like that part of it. Okay. So I have one more question and then we can summarize the interview. Can you give us, let's say three sales tips? I like the idea of three, right? Which we can use. And I'm asking for three because, the audience kind of has not seen you before over here. So if you can give me three sales tips that you've picked up recently that people in small businesses and entrepreneurs can use.
Boy, I'm just gonna make these up on the spot, right? And if folks
Yeah,
want
yeah.
want more from
You've
from
got
me and
600 of
and,
them.
and some other folks, yeah, there's 600 more, right? So if you don't like these, go find somebody else's tips who you do like. I think particularly as an entrepreneur, right? I mean, it's a hat that I've worn, it's a hat that I wear, and I think the hardest part of being an entrepreneur is that you are responsible for everything. You're responsible for making sure that whatever you sold gets delivered successfully, and your clients are happy, and your employees are happy, and the finances are up to date, and you're paying your taxes and all these other things. You're responsible for everything. But if you're going to grow your business and you're going to go grow revenue, you have to commit to spending some time focused on sales and focused on prospecting. And
Mm.
for me, the easiest metric that you can use is, and keep this easy and manageable, but I would bet that if you could every single day have 3 meaningful conversations, one of those conversations might be with a referral partner or somebody who is in a position to introduce you to new potential sources of business. If you can have one conversation with somebody like that each day, where that's actually going to help you fill your calendar in the future, right? So if one of my conversations today is with somebody who can introduce me to somebody, that's now going to be one of my conversations that I have once that meeting is scheduled on Thursday, once that conversation is scheduled.
Yes.
Another of those conversations should be with somebody who can do business with you, right?
Mm.
And you know, my approach in a lot of cases is, and I've built a podcast around this. I like to sort of set things up as an interview. You can do exactly what we're doing right now. You can say, hey, you're doing some really interesting things in your business. I would love to learn more about that and learn about some of the things that you're doing. Why don't we set up a quick interview if you want to sort of position it that way, and set them up in a place where you can just kind of ask them questions and get to know them. And that often naturally leads to a sales conversation if you structure that type of a conversation right? And then maybe your
Wow.
third conversation is with one of your customers, right? Where there's an
Mm.
opportunity to do more business. Maybe they can refer you and introduce you to somebody else. You can just make sure that they're happy and getting a good experience, and that what you're delivering is kind of working. But some structure like that. I think that, again, the easiest measurement at the end of the day, it's those conversations, right? And then whatever you have
Mm.
to do to get there. I don't know how many emails you need to send to schedule those meetings, but that's what you want to sort of be building to, is this place where every day you are consistently having sales conversations and your
Wow.
business
Okay.
is
All
going to
right.
grow.
Yeah, no, I've got an example that I'll summarize with, which kind of brings all this together for the audience. But I want to ask you this question because you mentioned in email. It's an additional question. How do you rate the importance of a telephone in today's world when you're prospecting? How important is it still important?
It's still important for sure, but it is one of many channels. And I think different people prefer different channels, right? So some people like to talk on the phone, some people like to text, some people want to interact on LinkedIn, some people want to interact here on Instagram, other people want to do Twitter. You could certainly put something in the mail to get somebody's attention, because that doesn't happen as much anymore as it once did, right? You have all of these different channels of communication open to you, and I say use all of them, right? See if you can't identify that person's preference. If you want to reach me, Instagram's not the best place.
First
My
place.
assistant manages, this is the first time I've ever done an interview here, so thank you
Oh
for
yeah. Oh
drawing me.
wow.
Yeah, thanks for drawing me on to
Hey, you're
Instagram,
welcome.
to do this. Right, but my natural setting is email and LinkedIn, right? That's the best place to reach me. If you want to send me an email, send that to Scott at top1.fm. I'm happy to hear from you, right? But you've got to kind of find people where they're at, and then hopefully, right, when it does come to the conversation, I think it's important that you actually have that conversation, right? A conversation doesn't really happen effectively via text, right? That should be on the phone. It certainly could be via Zoom or some other type of web meeting platform. I think is totally fine. But as far as that initial outreach and finding people, use every tool that's accessible to you, and oftentimes I'll then turn that into a joke, right? If I have been reaching out to somebody and I left them a voicemail, I sent them a text, I sent them an email, I sent them a message on LinkedIn, I direct messaged them on Twitter, I sent them a note in the mail, and I still haven't heard back, I'll make a joke and I'll send them another email and say, okay, I've tried everything. I'm not quite
Hmm.
sure what should I try next? Would you like me to send you a carrier pigeon? Would smoke signals work? How about a singing telegram? Just having fun with that and being a little bit human. Things like that will often kind of break the ice and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I know you've tried everything. I've just been really, really busy. Why don't we find time to connect in 2 weeks?" And voila, you've scheduled your meeting. And it's just about being persistent and using all of those channels.
Yeah, so I think that personal touch to emails and those communications is what a lot of times people miss. And when you add that, a little bit of human, as you said, it works. It works wonders. All right. So Scott, I want to summarize this. I'm just going to say a few things that I'm taking away, and then please help us understand where can we find you. I know we can find you on email and on LinkedIn, but what are the more channels that we can find you? So first thing is, it's about habits. And I think habits give you confidence. We're talking about good habits, of course. Getting the biggest thing done at the early stage of your day, whatever that early stage for you, is crucial. You don't want to do it, but you know it. You felt it sometime in your life. If you're an entrepreneur, that when you got it done, it was like a heavy load on your chest that got done, and you had the rest of the day and you had that confidence. So habits, right habits, give you confidence. Second is ensuring that you make some calls every single day, and which is where I wanted to give an example of exactly what Scott said. Okay, every time I've spent time with a client, like doing an interview or giving them a free session or doing something for them where I've been involved in the process, I've always been able to charge them more. Okay. Every time I've been, consistent with my habits in performing, which you should be, right? You should serve them as you would want to be served. Okay. They've been happy to pick up my calls and then give me referrals, or more business has just automatically happened. Now, because you work so much, I'm talking about you as an entrepreneur, right? You get good at something that gives you confidence to reach more people. And if you reach more people with what work you've done for other clients, which will probably be very similar to what you can do for them, of course, there will be some kind of customization, right? That confidence builds more confidence and you get more leads. Now, when you reach that cycle, right, this is where you start to do more things with your business, and you can have a team, you can do those other things. And it kind of came to me when Scott was speaking about that. And just final thing, remember that there are multiple ways to reach your customer. So you need to come up with your own mix, whatever suits the best. And you need a little bit of uncomfort. Let's say Scott has never done an Insta, right? It's the first time, and he's so famous. So he came on Insta, he's done a live over here. So what about you going on LinkedIn? What about you putting some human in that email? Or what about you picking up that call and then making that call to your prospect? So all those things, right? If you put them together, guys, it's not very tough. You can figure it out. And I think consistency is what we started with, and consistency is what we should end with. So Scott, where do we find you?
Yeah, so the easiest place, if you just go to top1.fm, TOP, the number 1.fm, you'll be able to find pretty much everything from there. So you'll find links to the podcasts, the books, the Sales Success Summit, all the stuff that we're doing. You'll find me on LinkedIn. And like I said, you're more than welcome to just send me an email, Scott at top1.fm. I'd love to hear from you. I'd appreciate you spending some time with me in your morning, my evening, and this has been a blast. So again, thanks for dragging me onto Instagram.
Maybe our evening and your morning, one of those days, right?
Yeah, exactly.
At 4:30 in the morning. All right, great. Well, Scott, thank you so much. It means a lot.
Excellent. And you have a great sales day. Thanks, Ashish.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.